At just 9 years old, she was drunk, high, and dancing at one of the most notorious nightclubs in the world. She wasn't just a child star, she was Hollywood's youngest addict. Pushed into the spotlight before she could even spell her name, she was raised by nightclubs, abandoned by her father, and locked away by her mother. This is what happens when you are born to be someone's paycheck. This is the unbelievable story of Drew Barrymore. Hi, my name is Tasha, and this is my series White Rabbit, where we deep dive into anything spooky, odd, or interesting while I apply some special effects makeup. Today's makeup is missing eyes because you are not going to believe the things this child was allowed to do, was forced to do, and everyone around her that was supposed to protect her pretended like they didn't see anything that was happening. Maybe they were blinded by her star power at such a young age. Maybe they were afraid of her mom. I don't know. If you like this type of content, please hit that subscribe button. I would love to entertain you on a regular basis, and it's the easiest way to support me. I will have my other social medias linked below in case you want to follow me on any of those. And other than that, let's jump right into the story. Drew Blythe Barrymore was born February 22nd, 1975 in Culver City, California. Her father was actor John Drew Barrymore, and her mother was an aspiring actress, Jade Barrymore. Drew comes from a long line of actors that date all the way back to the silent film era. They weren't just Hollywood actors, they were considered Hollywood royalty. Drew's grandfather, his name was also John Barrymore, but he was considered one of the greatest actors of the 20th century. He was also a notorious alcoholic who drank himself into madness and died alone in 1942. His body was basically ravaged by cirrhosis from years and years of heavy drinking. Drew's father, John, was just as tragic. He was a very violent and unstable man, and for most of his young adult life, he was in and out of jail with charges ranging from a hit and run to spousal abuse. He was so chaotic that he got suspended from the Screen Actors Guild, and he had to move to Italy to even be able to work. After about 10 years in Italy, he moved back to the States because he wanted to revamp his career here, and that is where he met Jade. Jade was instantly drawn to John. He was funny, he was charismatic, and most importantly, he was successful. Jade was actually born in Germany. She was born in a displaced persons camp after World War II, but her family had moved her to the States when she was very young. Jade eventually moved to LA to pursue her dream of becoming an actress. She did land a few small roles, but she wasn't like wildly successful, so she more so set her sights on finding her a successful man. And I know that's right. Jade met Drew's father, John, when she was working at Club Troubadour in 1970. She knew that she was falling in love with the man that came from generational actors, but she had no idea that she was also falling in love with the man that came from generational addicts. Every generation of Barrymores had at least one, but sometimes two people who completely destroyed their lives because of addiction, including John's sister. John, unfortunately, was no different. He was violent, he was mentally unstable, always in and out of jail, but somehow Jade managed to look past all of those red flags, and the two got married in 1971. And by the way, he was 40 and she was 25. Jade and John had problems from the beginning, obviously. Jade felt like if she got pregnant, that John would kind of be forced to at least tame down his lifestyle. But once she got pregnant with Drew, she realized that that was not going to happen. I'm not sure why Jade thought that, because this was John's third marriage and he had one child with each of his other wives, so that didn't calm him down before. But I guess she felt like things were different with them and that he would change for her. He did not. When Jade finally told John that she was leaving him, he beat her so violently that she almost lost Drew. He was basically stomping her out when the police arrived. He didn't stop when they got there. It took multiple officers to pull him off of her because he was so enraged. That was the end of their relationship and the end of Jade's dream life that she was cultivating, because now she was a single mom. John was not helping her at all. She had to waitress just to support them. She had nothing to her name. Jade had to do whatever she could do to make ends meet. Almost immediately, she decided to start focusing on Drew's career instead of her own, and Drew's career began before she could even walk. At 11 months old, she was cast in her first commercial, and by 3, she had landed her first movie deal. I mean, Drew was getting work left and right as a child. She had everything you would want when casting a little human. She was smart, she was funny, and she had her dad's charisma. Drew was not a shy little girl, and if she couldn't win someone over with her acting, then she would turn up her charm and she would normally win them over with her personality. Drew got her really big break when she was cast in the iconic film E.T. and at just 6 years old, little Drew played the hell out of that role. I love E.T. Steven Spielberg conceptualized E.T. and it was a way of bringing a childhood fantasy to life. The movie was loosely based on his childhood growing up and the loneliness that he felt after his parents' divorce. Obviously, he didn't have an alien for a best friend, but he did have an imaginary friend that he had made up. Spielberg said that E.T. was a special friend that rescued a child from sadness. Drew, at just 6 years old, did relate to that loneliness, that childhood loneliness, and she even became really attached to the animatronic that they used for E.T., so much to the point that Spielberg told the cast to leave it on whenever they were filming so that if Drew ever wanted to talk to him, she could talk to him. When they would have lunches, she would take her little plate and go sit and talk to E.T. I'm sorry, it's just kind of sad because she kept talking about how lonely she was as a child. Also, I think that's just like a really cute way of preserving her innocence and her imagination. Major points to him for that. So the film was wildly successful. It made like $200 million in the first few months. There were action figures, posters, cereal. E.T. was winning award after award after award. At just 6, Drew had made her own little stamp in Hollywood. But her success did not come with safety. Her mother did not protect her. She basically threw her to the wolves. Drew was pretty much always in the company of adults. She was very mature because of this. If you listen to some of her older interviews, she's really able to hold her own in a conversation with adults. She had great banter, and it was almost as if you weren't talking to a child. But they were talking to a child, and some of the interviews got really inappropriate. You could see men basically flirting with her in front of everyone. She was asked about being in love and getting married, and she was called beautiful and a woman. Being called a beautiful woman at the age of 7 is unbelievably creepy.
Oh, that's nasty.
Her mother, Jade, was very desperate for the limelight, and she started taking Drew to these exclusive parties and nightclubs and basically using her to get access. While other kids were learning to ride bikes, Drew was attending private birthday bashes of grown men and sipping champagne at Studio 54. If you don't know about it, Studio 54 was the nightclub of all nightclubs. It was very exclusive. It was a haven for celebrities, sex, chaos, and party powder. There were no rules at Studio 54. Inside, it was completely normal to see like rows of party powder, to see people having an orgy on the balcony, and little Drew was just amongst this. As if it wasn't enough that Drew was there, as soon as they got inside, her mother would leave her. Her mother said they would go their separate ways. How are you going your separate way with your 6-year-old at Studio 54? She had no idea what was happening to her, if she was okay, who she was with. She definitely didn't care what she was exposed to. Drew started smoking cigarettes at the age of 7. By the age of 9, she was already drinking. She said that at first it was a little drink here, a little drink there, but then eventually she started feeling like that was the only way that she could have fun. She didn't know how to have fun without alcohol, and she wasn't even a preteen yet. By the age of 10, Drew was sneaking out and going clubbing by herself in LA and in New York. I can't believe that she was getting in, period, but especially without her mother. I guess maybe because she was so well known and she frequented these places with her mother. How was she even getting there? Did she have a driver? Did she call a cab? I just don't understand how this was happening. It sounds crazy. The media even started running stories about her with photo evidence of her just dancing the night away at 2 a.m. in Studio 54. Alone at that. And people were definitely confused and definitely questioning why the heck she was there and where was her mother. Drew talked about one night where she was basically coerced into chugging 2 glasses of champagne, and she ended up blacking out and waking up hours later. This is actually infuriating to hear. Eventually, alcohol wasn't enough, and at the age of 10, Drew got her first taste of good old Mary Jane. According to Drew, she was in her friend's mom's car, and her friend's mom was driving them somewhere, but she ended up sparking up while the kids were in the car. Drew, I guess, had been wanting to try it for a very long time. So she's like in the back, basically salivating, wanting to ask her friend's mom, but she didn't really know how and she was kind of scared. Anyway, out of nowhere, her friend's mom turns around and asks her, "Do you want to try?" She offered someone's 10-year-old daughter a hit. And Drew said that her friend's mom was like looking at her through the mirror and she was just giving her this look of like, oh, she's so adorable. Look how cute she is getting blazed in the back of my car. Smoking the devil's lettuce was enough for Drew until she was about 12 years old. And then she graduated to party powder, little white lines. I hate to say this, but I have to say this. Her mother was terribly inadequate. Like, she did not protect her from anything. I think she should have been charged with some kind of child neglect or child endangerment. This next part I did want to include because I thought it was important, but I wasn't really sure where to put it on the timeline, so I'm just going to add it in here. When Drew was a very small child, she managed to watch the film Lolita. If you don't know about the film adaptation of Lolita, I hear it's very different from the book. From what I understand, because I haven't read the book, but the book is about a man that falls in love with a little girl. He ends up marrying her mother just to get close to her, and then the mother passes away and he ends up with custody of her. So the book was meant to showcase his sickness and give a little glimpse into his deranged mind and thinking process. Well, the film, which I have seen, is not like that at all. First of all, it portrayed Lolita, the child, as a seductress. Lolita was very flirtatious, she was very sexual, and they portrayed the grown man as if he was like some kind of innocent and she preyed upon him. She was always the one in complete control and he was like putty in her hands. I feel like it was a gross movie and I had trouble watching it, but I did want to see it because I hear it referenced all the time and I wanted to know what people were referencing. I don't know what the hell 7-8-year-old Drew was doing watching this movie, but she said that she began to model her personality off of Lolita because it made it easier for her to talk to these grown men that she always had to be around. According to Drew, nothing inappropriate ever happened to her, but also she talked about blacking out when she chugged 2 champagne glasses and waking up hours later, so how would she even know? She would also develop these friendships with grown men, and her mother would let her go over to their houses, spend weekends with them and their families, go to concerts. She was even invited to go on tour with Rod Stewart, and her mom did consider it. Jade considered it, but she eventually told her no, and Drew was so mad. But like, what the hell was Rod Stewart thinking inviting like an 8-year-old to go on tour with him? When Drew was about 10 years old, work started to really dry up for her, partially because of her habits, of her drinking and of her party powder habit. It had gotten out and a lot of people were kind of hesitant to cast her. And the other part of it was she was just in an awkward stage. She wasn't the cute little kid anymore, but she also wasn't like a teenage girl. Almost all kids have like a little awkward stage. Mine was not fun. My teeth were like the same size when I was 9 years old as they are now. I grew into them. But Drew took her awkward stage really hard. I guess because she was always known as this super adorable, cute little kid. It was just part of who she was. She just started to feel ugly. And according to her, she was a very heavy kid. I'm going to tell you right now, from the pictures I've seen, I have never seen her as a very heavy kid. She seemed pretty normal to me, but I also have to remember that she was a Hollywood kid. And I'm sure those standards and expectations are like far more than I can even comprehend. Even when she went to school, Drew was teased relentlessly. She was called fat and ugly by her classmates. And this just basically destroyed her self-esteem because she was already thinking those things about herself and she felt like people were confirming what she already knew. This in turn made Drew very depressed and she leaned on her addictions even more heavily. When Drew finally started having movie offers come back around, she was actually really hesitant about taking them, which was strange because Drew loved to film. Another form of escapism for her, but she had just reached the point in her addictions where she didn't want to do anything but party. That was the only thing that made her feel better. Her mom completely ignored Drew's feelings. She forced her to work anyway. I mean, she was the breadwinner and they had bills. But Jade forcing Drew to film splintered their relationship and they entered that lovely place where all they did was fight all the time. They were at odds all the time because Drew was treated as an adult, so she felt like she was an adult and she didn't feel like she had to listen to her mom. When Drew was 12, she met an older teenage girl and they became best friends. She was 17 years old. I believe she was a model and she had a lot of the same vices that Drew had. They would go out together, they would party, she would stay at this girl's house and the girl's mother would let them do whatever they wanted. Drew even got a 15-year-old boyfriend at the time and the three of them would go out and they would club hop and party and do all of the illegal things. If I saw 3 children at the bar drinking, drugging, immediately reporting your bar. The only time Drew really had any sobriety was when she was filming these movies that she didn't even want to film. Then she would fly back to LA and be more out of control than ever. Her mother was already pretty aware that she had created a monster and that Drew really had a problem, but they had reached a point where she could not control her at all. Like Drew's rebellion was just too much. Drew's mother had finally had enough, and after one really bad fight, after a night where Drew came home drunk and it was like wee hours of the morning and she was being super disrespectful, Jade told Drew, if this happens again, you're going to rehab. Well, it didn't take long for it to happen again. Drew came home drunk, they got into an argument, and Drew went to the refrigerator to grab a beer. And her mother told her, you better not drink that beer. And then Drew just, shh, that's the sound. She just opened the beer, went into her room, slammed the door, and started drinking. If I was 13 and I did that, my door would have been in a million splinters on the floor. I'm sure Drew didn't believe that Jade was going to actually make her go to rehab because up to this point, she had been letting her get away with anything she wanted to do. But Jade was serious, and no matter how much Drew channeled her father by being manipulative and throwing things and screaming and losing her mind, she went to rehab. In 1988, Drew was just 13 when she checked into rehab for the first time. And this wasn't like some cushy celebrity getaway type rehab. This was strict and cold. It was a psychiatric facility. She later wrote there were no hugs, no you're going to be okay. It was just discipline and rules and hard truth. But that's what I needed. I didn't need coddling. I needed saving. Drew's first day in rehab didn't do much because after just 10 days, Jade checked her out to go do some filming. Yes, she interrupted her treatment for filming. After she was done filming, she obviously went right back to treatment because she went right back to her same habit. She had only been there for 10 days. I'm surprised she was able to stay sober during filming, honestly, because most adult addicts could not go for months of time without being able to feed their addiction. As far as taking Drew out of treatment to go film, I think her mother did that twice. And the second time she took her out of treatment, she even allowed her to hang out with that same older teenage girlfriend, and she allowed them to go out and party together. But her mother, for some reason, still expected Drew to maintain her sobriety, even though she was putting her in the exact same situations that caused her to be an addict. So when her mother let her go hang out with her older friend, eventually some party powder was offered and Drew took it, and then she had a breakdown. She felt so bad that all of her, it was like 76 days of sobriety was just gone. Then she figured she might as well live it up while she can, because she knew she was going to get tested when she went back to treatment, and she was going to test dirty and she was going to be in a lot of trouble. She stole Jade's credit card. They were in New York at the time, I think, and she and her friend flew to LA. They went on a shopping spree, and then Drew bought like 2 flights to Hawaii. Then the two girls went down to Drew's condo and stole Jade's car. Jade found out what Drew was doing, and Drew was escorted back to the rehab, and this time she spent 18 months in rehab. She went from 10 days to 18 months. One of the things that Drew discovered in rehab was that she was really, really resentful of her mother for always being the manager first. Drew said she wanted her just to be the mother sometimes, and Drew just wanted to be a child sometimes, but Jade was always manager first. She felt lonely. She already didn't have a dad. He only called her to ask for money, and if she didn't give him money, he would scream at her. And now her mother just threw her in this psychiatric facility, and it was really hard. Not only was she forced to be sober, but she was forced to bring up all of this emotional trauma she had and talk about it. And then also she couldn't act. She didn't act for that whole time. And Drew said this was the type of place that you did not play around at. You would either end up in a padded room or strapped.
Be specific!
To a gurney.
Okay.
She eventually figured out that the only way she was going to be able to get out was to actually work the program. And she wanted to get out, so she just started making an effort. Up until this point, Drew's drinking and her powder habit were only known to Hollywood insiders. To the public, everyone still just viewed her as this cute little innocent girl. But when she went missing from the public eye for a year and a half, people started to wonder. Drew was like this close to getting out of rehab when somebody leaked all of the details to the National Enquirer, which that was like the biggest gossip magazine at the time. I don't know, maybe it is now still. It's kind of like a scummy magazine that like publish things that are sometimes true, sometimes not true, but it's all about like the shock value and the extreme stories. You never really know what to believe. But they had the real story on Drew, and they broke the story right as she was getting out. Also, while she was in rehab, Drew decided that she wanted to get emancipated from Jade. They had already had a really strained relationship, but Drew found out that while she was in rehab, her mother was being extra friendly with her boyfriend. He was even staying at the house while Drew was away in rehab. Now, if my math is correct, he's 3 years older than Drew, because Drew was 12 when they met and he was 15. Yeah. And now she's 14 at this point in the story. So he's 17, maybe 18. Okay. Drew was livid, as she should have been. It was bad enough that Jade essentially abandoned her at this facility because she never came to visit. She never brought things that Drew needed. Drew said that the other kids would get like little gifts or McDonald's, and the only thing she ever got was a script. The facility that Drew was staying at actually helped her with her emancipation. They worked with the courts because they truly believed that if Drew went back with her mother, that she would not remain sober. And so Drew was emancipated at 14. She moved out of her mother's house and got her little shabby apartment in a terrible rundown neighborhood. Now, I'm assuming that Jade did not manage Drew's money well, because why else would she be living in a little shabby apartment in a rundown neighborhood? Like, why is she there? Or maybe Drew had the money, but like she wasn't given access to it. I don't know. Fresh off of her emancipation at 17, Drew Barrymore took on a role that would shock everyone. In the 1992 cult thriller Poison Ivy, she plays a troubled teen who seduces her friend's father and basically manipulates everyone around her. It was a total rejection of that innocent E.T. image, which was the whole point. She wanted to like burn that child star image to the ground. The movie didn't just cause controversy, it became a symbol of Drew's rebellion. And another way that Drew rebelled was by posing nude on the cover of Interview magazine when she was just 17 with her then fiance. She was having no problem getting roles at this point. She even had a really successful collaboration with Guess Jeans, and she was named the next Guess Girl, which was like a really big deal back then. At 19, Drew fell in love with a bartender at this place she used to frequent, and they ran off and got married. But just 6 weeks later, Drew filed for divorce, stating that they had irreconcilable differences. That same year, she did a Playboy spread, and the month after she did her Playboy spread, her mom actually did a Playboy spread. That's interesting. She just seemed to be in this weird competition with her daughter. Drew went on to star in several box office hits, including Scream, Never Been Kissed, and Batman Forever. She managed to remain sober except for a brief relapse in 2016 when she was divorcing the father of her 2 children. In 2020, she was offered her own talk show, and I'm pretty sure it's still running as of now. She really has overcome so many hurdles and managed to cultivate this beautiful life for herself. Whew. Okay, I put my 2 cents in through the whole video. Let me know your thoughts. How was it possible as a child for her to live the life she was living? How did everyone fail her? Leave it in the comments below. Please remember to like and subscribe, and I will see you down another rabbit hole.